Drug dealers are known to be cold, vicious, and emotionless, but does this demeanor stand in the face of a life behind bars? Let's find out. The following drug dealers have been working for the devil, and now it's time to pay back what they owe him. The man you just saw shedding tears is responsible for the death of more than 1,000 people. He has come to the realization that he will be confined for the rest of his life in the United States.
Agricultor.
¿Su lugar de nacimiento? Sí.
Municipio de Guanajuato.
Fecha de nacimiento?
4 de abril del 50.
None other than Mexico's version of Pablo Escobar, El Chapo, is the most apt figure to kick off this list.
En Antioquia todos conocen las inversiones en el campo de la industria, en el campo de la ganadería y en el campo de la construcción.
Pero usted puede asegurar que su dinero nunca ha tenido vinculación con el narcotráfico.
El Chapo, whose real name is Joaquin Archivaldo Guzman Lorera, is not merely a drug lord, but also the head of Mexico's most intricate drug cartel.
La opinión pública que el señor ministro de Justicia tiene un plazo de 24 horas para que presente
The Sinaloa cartel. Born into extreme poverty on April 4th, 1957, El Chapo endured childhood abuse from his father, who worked as both a cattle rancher during the day and a nighttime drug dealer. Despite the mistreatment, El Chapo was encouraged by his father to assist in trading marijuana on the streets. Eventually, El Chapo took over the actual drug-selling responsibilities, but his father squandered the profits on everything. In an effort to support his mother and brother, El Chapo, along with some cousins, decided to establish their own marijuana plantation.
Cuidaba el ganado de mi abuela y cortaba leña. ¿Cómo pasó?
However, for reasons unknown to us, El Chapo was kicked out of their home by his father, propelling him to the depths of the narcotics underworld. Joining the Guadalajara cartel, El Chapo oversaw their drug shipments, earning a reputation for his zero-tolerance approach. Any delay or issue with the shipment led to him personally executing the responsible sicario. This caught the attention of Félix Gallardo,
he asegurado que mi dinero no tiene vínculos con el narcotráfico.
a big Mexican drug lord at the time. After Gallardo's arrest, El Chapo co-founded the Sinaloa cartel in 1987 with other prominent drug lords. He then dominated the Mexican streets, overseeing the distribution of cocaine, heroin, methamphetamine, fentanyl, cannabis, and MDMA into the United States. El Chapo is said to have shipped more drugs into the U.S. than any other drug lord in history, utilizing innovative methods such as underground tunnels. As El Chapo's influence grew, so did his status as a wanted man in Mexico. He faced arrests in 1993 and 2014, but managed to escape custody twice. In the final attempt to bring him to justice, El Chapo was apprehended for the third time in 2016 and extradited to the U.S. The realization that he would spend the rest of his life in prison prompted the emotional reaction captured in this footage.
Sí.
Municipio de Guanajuato.
Fecha de nacimiento?
4 de abril del 57.
¿Su edad?
58.
He's now serving multiple life sentences in the most secure U.S. prison, the ADX Florence. But El Chapo wouldn't be the only one to be visibly shocked at the life in prison sentence. Enter Marciano Millan Vasquez.
Remember, the Zeta drug cartel said he witnessed 70 to 80 executions carried out by the Zetas in Mexico. Gustavo Rodriguez was testifying against Marciano Millan Vasquez, a man the government says was a major player in the cartel.
That's too low compared to the actual atrocities committed by Vasquez during his tenure with the cartel. On March 18, 2015, Vasquez, accompanied by a group of sicarios, abducted around 300 people in a remote Mexican village. Shockingly, he ordered the execution of at least half of the abductees. Another horrific incident in 2013 involved Vasquez setting a 6-year-old girl on fire, forcing her parents to witness her agonizing death. He proceeded to burn her mother and then her father, effectively eradicating an entire family in a single day. Vasquez held a prominent position as a regional leader within Los Zetas, a notoriously dangerous criminal organization in Mexico known for unimaginable acts such as decapitation, cannibalism, disembowelment, and feeding victims to wild animals. The leader of Los Zetas at the time was known as El Verdugo, meaning the executioner, illustrating the extreme brutality of the organization.
Forces under the leadership of the National Defense Secretariat captured Oscar Omar Trevino Morales.
Back to Vasquez. He was the person willing to carry out any order, including directing sicarios and engaging in the illegal activities of the organization. Vasquez's criminal involvement extended beyond drug trafficking to arms dealing, the illegal sale of pornography, and human trafficking. Between 2009 and 2015, he brutally murdered approximately 30 people in cold blood, showcasing the extent of his involvement in various heinous acts. However, on July 15, 2015, he was apprehended and subsequently received 7 life sentences on various charges.
The chubby man in black looks remarkably relaxed for a drug czar who's just been arrested for mass murder.
Although cameras were prohibited in the courtroom during his sentencing, the post-sentencing images revealed Vasquez with his head bowed in regret, realizing that he would spend the rest of his life behind bars. The same can't be said for Miguel Ángel Félix Gallardo. Félix Gallardo, born on January 8, 1946, was among the first people who initiated the narcotics trade in Mexico.
Salud es pésima. Mi familia está haciendo un hoyo para yo ser enterrado en un árbol. No tengo pronóstico de vida ninguno.
He grew up in Bella Vista, Culiacán, and unlike other drug dealers, his childhood wasn't characterized by abject poverty. He attended high school and pursued a business degree in college.
La voy a quitarles, sentí que me pusieron algo aquí, pero no sé si serán las mías. Estaba vendado.
After which he joined the Mexican Federal Judicial Police Agency. Later, he served as the personal bodyguard for Sinaloa's then leader, Leopoldo Sánchez Solís, establishing connections with the influential politicians to set up a drug trafficking organization.
Ignoro el por qué se me relaciona, porque ese señor no lo conocí. Le vuelvo a repetir, yo no soy una persona de armas, lamento mucho.
In the 1970s, he founded the Guadalajara cartel and collaborated with Colombian cartels for narcotic shipments. At its prime, the Guadalajara cartel generated an annual revenue of $5 billion. However, their challenges and eventual downfall began with the arrival of Enrique Kiki Camarena, a DEA agent who commenced investigations into the cartel in the 1980s. Camarena, after gaining proximity to some of the members of Gallardo's organization, acquired intelligence on the cartel's marijuana plantation and the involvement of lower-tier politicians in the drug trade and shipments to the U.S.
Él fue posteriormente muerto. Cuando yo estaba en la cárcel, él murió. No existe SAR, no existió eso. Nunca existió carteles en Guadalajara. ¿Quién sabe ahora?
Camarena informed the Mexican federal government about his discoveries, leading to a raid on Gallardo's plantation. Incensed by this, on February 7, 1985, Gallardo ordered the abduction of Camarena and his helicopter pilot as they were leaving the U.S. consulate in Guadalajara. They were subsequently taken to a remote location where they endured 30 hours of continuous torture. Such extreme torture can prove fatal, and unfortunately, after 48 hours in the hands of Gallardo and his men, Mr. Camarena and his innocent pilot died. Their bodies dropped by the roadside, where they were later found by members of the Mexican authorities. As you might have guessed, their death sparked outrage in the United States. The U.S. government demanded the Mexican government arrest everyone involved. However, this was a tad bit of a problem because Gallardo had the government under his payroll, so there was no way they were turning him in. But after intense pressure, the Mexican government had to turn him in. He was arrested at his house in Guadalajara, still wearing his bathrobe. It was surprising, in my opinion, that he didn't fight back and that no weapons were required. His response was deadpan when he arrived at the station. It was the ideal combination of remorse and indifference. A 40-year prison term was imposed against him. He did, however, receive some house arrest in December of 2022, as we see in the next case of Dexter Lee Williams. A similar degree of catatonic coldness is displayed by Dexter Lee Williams, but in Williams' case, someone else is getting worked up on his behalf.
We talking about from me, Judge? You holding what I said?
I'm talking to Mr. Williams. I've heard everything.
Right, but you're holding, no, what other accusations? He didn't testify, so you're holding what I said.
I've heard everything.
After being found guilty on 3 charges of breaking the Racketeer and Corrupt Organizations Act, the 53-year-old kingpin is set to receive his punishment at Houston County Superior Court shortly. According to the authorities, Williams was found guilty of drug trafficking, allegedly running a multi-million-dollar narcotics trafficking enterprise between Atlanta and Mexico. At the time of the arrest, he was found in possession of 39 kilograms of cocaine, estimated to be worth $3.5 million.
Son of a bitch, they thought me that fast. house.
Here he is talking and laughing to himself in the back of the police car following his arrest.
Your case, it's not a mere possession case. It's not a mere struggle that you have with an addiction that you personally have. It is not that. You are, I would say, you are feeding the addiction that they're battling with, and you are profiting from there.
Sentencing Williams is Judge Bo Adams. He has some strong words for the defendant, who sits impassively in his seat. Although Williams appears unaffected by Judge Adams' remarks, his defense lawyer, Wanda Jackson, is becoming visibly upset.
Convicted not because the court is underhanded or corrupted or is corrupt or anything like that.
It appears that the defendant is finally realizing that his sentencing is not going well.
We talking about for me, Judge, you holding what I said, or this I heard?
I'm talking to Mr. Williams. I've heard everything. And
Right, but you're holding, no, what other accusations? He didn't testify, so you're holding what I said.
I've heard everybody. I've heard it all.
Who else said
I've
it?
heard it all. I've heard it all. That's my...
He looks at his attorney, still in his emotionless state. Wanda Jackson is furious with Judge Adams. She's clearly had enough. She tries to scold him for suggesting that her defense case was full of ludicrous allegations, but the judge ignores her and continues speaking.
Mr. Williams, you're convicted not because I'm corrupt or underhanded, or law enforcement is racist, or the jury had unauthorized contact with witnesses. You're convicted because you're guilty. That's the plain and simple truth of it. The evidence will show that, the wiretaps show that, and at the end of it all, I find that I would say you should be sentenced for your involvement, your participation in this racketeering enterprise, and you're acquiring significant sums of money.
But Jackson doesn't seem to be impressed. She can be seen puffing and making hand gestures. Williams is ultimately given a 40-year sentence without the possibility of release by the judge, not even by the thought of living out the rest of his days behind bars.
For count one, I will sentence Mr. Williams to 20 years to serve. Count two, I will sentence him to 20 years. And that will be consecutive to count one, and I'm going to require that be served. 20 years to serve. Count three, I already indicated that is merged with count one. So that'll be the sentence of...
Jackson is not happy. She grabs her things and leaves before the judge has a chance to say anything else.
That'll be the sentence of the court as a result of...
Thank you, may be excused.
All right.
Do you think the punishment fits the crime? Let us know in the comments below.